Hey everybody, this is Perch, and some people pointed me at this title that I believe is going out on Kickstarter. Yes, it was actually successfully funded on Kickstarter, and now it's apparently fulfilling. And this is RDW: A Tale of Lost Fantasy. It's by the creator Marco. Crap! I need to where'd my notes go? This is Marco Rudy. Sorry about that. This is the kind of professionalism you get from this show. Anyway, Marco Rudy has this comic and put it up on Kickstarter, got it successfully funded, apparently, and is now sending out the copies to backers, or at least is somewhere in that fulfillment process. Looks like the product basically made $36,000, 424 backers. So a good accomplishment. I'm always curious, by the way, in these projects, what's going on. And sure enough, we've got a digital edition for $20, $35 for a hardcover, $55 for a hardcover, and it's short story, $70. So no knock on this creator and everything else, but god damn, these prices are too expensive. I'm sorry. This is too much. Now granted, this is a big book, and so I'm not gonna. I don't want to knock this, but it's this stuff's expensive. Now, when you look at the work and somebody puts in all this time into it, of course, they're putting in a lot of material. So it's got a painted cover and all this. So it looks very nice. The imagery that's done. So not a knock against the project. Just we've got to have some comics. Maybe not this one that are cheaper than this, but at any rate. So the mail that I got was that basically. This comic, well, there's two things I get. Number one, the comic is billed in news articles, and I'd be curious if the writer artist agrees with this impression or not. But they bill it as a fantasy story dealing with PTSD, mental health, drug addiction, and monsters in RDW: A Tale of Lost Fantasy, and I see that stuff brought up, and I often think that's a terrible way to bill something if you're trying to get a good audience. Now, granted, made 36,000, so that's not bad at all. But at any rate, it's I think that there's a belief inside of comics that these kind of stories that tip into real life, things that deal with PTSD and mental health and drug addiction and other things are more interesting. Those topics are more interesting to people as topics than they actually are. I think you've got a story here that looks beautiful. The pages look wonderful, and it's looks like it's got lots of action and sword and sorcery and everything. It's like, don't bury the lead. Now, especially in time and everywhere, in our world of COVID and everything else, you're desperate to get some escapism. So it's like I'm still cringing at the thought. Of in a year or two, we're going to start to see a lot of these graphic novels come out about depression in a time of a pandemic. And it's like, who's going to read that? Nobody in their right mind is going to want to read that at that point. Anyway, back to the books. I'm being a little unfair. The question I get is apparently in the origin of this comic, it was originally aimed as a comic based on The Witcher. And so the comic was kind of put together as set in the Witcher universe, and a lot of these ideas, got kind of picked up, we're trying to tap into that world. But the creator was not able to secure a deal to do those. There's apparently The Witcher is working with Dark Horse, and that Dark Horse just didn't bite. And so it didn't happen. So they basically, and the article makes this comment about how it's like, fan fiction, Witcher fan fiction, which I think is kind of that feels like a knock against the creator, that the Witcher fan fiction was transitioned into this other universe. And maybe that is the truth of what happened. I think that's a little derogatory to kind of describe it that way, but okay. But the question I get is it common, if you write fan fiction, is it common that, that fan fiction can either, get you a job at the company where you're writing a fan fiction for? So like if you're writing Harry Potter fan fiction, is J.K. Rowling one day going to go, you know what, I'm tired of doing all this wizard shit. Why don't, your fan fiction will become, I'll print it under my name, and you can live there. Um, or is it more common that people take the fan fiction and kind of spin it out into their own worlds? I think there's been a couple instances of this. That movie, or the book show, or the thing with the bondage, was it 50 Shades of Grey? No, that wasn't that originally supposed to be like a Twilight fan fiction or something. I could swear there's a connection there where the writer was writing kind of bondage fan fiction, and then realized that they can make middle-aged women horny, and so they took the vampire part out of it, and then they got Target to sell these books. It happens. I think that it unfortunately, a lot of fan fiction goes nowhere. It exists only as fan fiction. It goes up on the internet, and people are able to to read it, and it gets some mild kind of fan communities around this fan fiction, but it doesn't really ever go anywhere. And I know several publishers who are pretty averse to ever looking at fan fiction, both because there has been some instances where writers have been accused of, and in some cases have done, copied basically the fan fiction, and taken those ideas and printed it. And there's been some accusations of plagiarism from it. But mostly because fan fiction tends to be pretty shitty. There are some good ones out there, absolutely. And then there's some stuff that just reads like the weirdest kind of rant you've heard on the bus about somebody's favorite character. I think that if your goal is to write for a particular character, you need to come up with some ideas. But I think publishing them online and getting some support that way through a fan fiction community is unlikely to help you very much. Your odds are probably lowered by doing that than by creating these scripts and trying to work kind of the model internally. I don't know. This would be a good question to ask some of the writers. Jim Zub, I think, usually has an opinion on these things, and curious what he would say. But generally speaking, I think it's not a good shortcut to get work. Now, some people write fan fiction and have no real desire to ever work for a major publisher. They're just it's just their hobby. It's like some idiot who makes lots of YouTube videos every day about comics. That can be done. But in general, it's not a good route. I think what you're seeing here with this story with Marco Rudy and this RDW book, it's probably the happiest possible ending to kind of how this stuff could go, in the sense that he wanted to do something with The Witcher, wasn't able to do it, maintained his ideas, and again, I can't quite tell from the article or what he's doing about was it plotted out in favor of The Witcher when the actual pages started to be created? Was it still kind of intended as something for the Witcher universe, or did this change at some point? I'm not sure. But the idea that if he couldn't, and I think he says this quote, "I figured that if I wasn't going to tell a story in universe for The Witcher, why not create my own, follow in the master's footsteps, but add my own flavor to things? And then, ultimately get the stuff produced, put up on Kickstarter, get funded, fulfill a book." Cool. That's, again, that's probably as good as it gets in terms of how this stuff works. So I think, a lot of different options. There's Gumroad, I know, is one that a lot of people are going to, Patreon, where you can do this kind of stuff. I think the best part about probably creating fan fiction and leaning into this stuff is that you teach yourself some discipline about what it means to put the pages together, get them in the right location, get them produced, get them printed. Going through some of those mechanics is probably the most valuable part to both yourself in terms of kind of managing your career, and to other companies. I think, and I may be wrong about this, but I suspect with Marvel, DC, and a lot of these groups, it's a lot less about the amazing, clever pitch that you have, and it's a lot more about, can you follow a process? Can you get your stuff in on time? Does your stuff look professional? Is it all named and organized correctly? I have a feeling like those things are probably as valuable as your crazy story pitch. I mean, because you could get high and come up with lots of crazy ideas for Ghostwriter. People at Marvel do that all the time. But this is probably showing that you can walk the walk and project manage something is probably the right way to do it. Anyway, so kind of point out to this project again, looks fun. The pages again look beautiful in this thing. And much congratulations to Marco for his success. But I don't think that this idea, if you're getting the impression that, hey, the way to get work is to write some fan fiction about a character and then kind of pester the company until it finally gets to somewhere, and then maybe modify the character slightly if you don't get permission. I think that's an incorrect read of what happened here with this book. And also, I think you'll have a lot less success if that's your goal than other routes. But anyway, thanks for the question. Fun times. Again, congratulations to Marco and best success. I still want to see cheaper comics. Again, this book is very pretty. Looks like a lot of pages, hardcover, all the rest. So it's going to drive up the cost, of course. Somebody else, some cheaper comics, please. Thanks for listening.